Shall we do it so you can go get some sleep?
I'm in. I'm in for the long haul.
There we go. Welcome to Tailoring Talk. I'm Roberto Revilla, bespoke tailor and weaver of superpowers. I prepare my clients and listeners to win. We'll meet self-starters and creators, dive into their journeys and uncover valuable lessons to help you be the very best you can be. Please help the show to grow and help more people by hitting subscribe and giving us a rating. If you're watching on YouTube, join in the comments. I always love to hear from you. Today, I'm honoured to host one of my oldest friends, a true visionary, an entrepreneur whose journey exemplifies the spirit of growth and resilience. From the mean streets of Croydon to the pinnacle of luxury publishing, property and other luxury stuff, because what can I say? He likes it up here, not down there. Our guest has carved a path fueled by passion and determination and a love for great whiskey. With an unwavering commitment to innovation, he's not just a business owner, he's a catalyst and inspiration for change in the entrepreneurial landscape we all live in today. Join me as we explore the nuances of identifying growth, seizing opportunity, and pushing the needle. Tailoring Talkers, please welcome Kalpesh Patel, affectionately known as KP, to the show. KP, how are you?
And just for the record, I'm not clapping at myself. I'm clapping at I'm clapping at the hype guy. You know. So no, what a welcome! What a welcome! I love that. I'm taking you on tour wherever I'm going. You're coming on tour with me. You know.
So from now on at Foundxrs Club events, right? You'll put me out first to introduce you before you introduce whoever you're to. Yeah, okay,
that's right.
I'm happy, man. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So I'm really excited because you're like the third Indian I've had on the podcast, man, in like 170 episodes. It's crazy. So this is doing our bit for representation, and then we'll get some women on next week. So you and I have known each other for a very, 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 very long time. So I remember when I was 6 years old, my parents moved from Thornton Heath to Norbury, and I had to change schools from David Livingstone to Norbury Manor, infants, and you became my best friend really early on. Like, I think we were pretty much inseparable from the age of like 6 through to when we left primary school, 11. And then unfortunately, the lack of mobile phones and things, I don't know what happened, but we got separated. The universe pushed us like leaves in the wind in separate directions, and then we eventually blew back together about 25, 30 years later or something. Here we are.
Yeah.
So absolutely. Incredible, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's funny how fate works, and you know, I'm definitely a big believer in sometimes, you know, the people who are supposed to be in your life will at some point always return back into your life, and those people who aren't, that's okay, you know. But yeah, it is, you know, I mean, to be fair, and the way we came back together as well was it was amazing. You would never put it together like that, right? I mean, just mentioned primary school. When we were in primary school, I remember there was 3 of us. There's me, you, and there was Imran. Do you remember Imran? So there was 3 of us who would hang around together, and you know, and yeah, you're right. Because of the lack of, I guess, mobile communication, all that stuff, all 3 of us went our separate ways, you know. So, but it's beautiful to have you back in my life, you know, and I'm glad we're here.
I'll never forget how it happened as well, because I was in a meeting with Porsche. So it was when I just launched my brand, and Porsche were about to relaunch the Boxster as a 718. And somehow they found me. So I went for a meeting at Porsche HQ with Nick Wilson, who was their brand and marketing manager at the time. And they wanted to put together a kind of video promoting the new Porsche and the fact that they were able to bespoke the car. And obviously a bespoke tailor was kind of like in their eyes, the sort of natural fit. Anyway, at the end of that meeting, he said to me, he said, do you know a Kalpesh Patel, Asian Wealth Magazine? I said, well, I've heard of Asian Wealth Magazine because I kind of see it in the foyers of apartments I go into in Mayfair and stuff. But as for a Kalpesh Patel, like there's 2 million Kalpesh Patels in the world. How can you expect me to know who the hell you're talking about? I used to go to infant school and primary school with one though. He said, well, anyway, listen, for some reason, you remind me of each other. You need to meet this guy. So he kind of helped me to set this thing up. And I think I got in touch with your people. And then we were due to meet at the Savoy. And so I'm there early, as I usually am, waiting. You come through, like, recognise each other straight away. And it was like, you know, well, Zahir is my natural given name.
It was like falling in love.
Like Kalpesh, Zahir? Yeah. And then we just hugged straight away. I think I initiated it more than you did, though, because I've just got you into the hugging thing. You've not really been much of a hugger.
I was never really a hugger, but I think you made me more so into a hugger now. You know? So, yeah, there's always that love now. So
exactly.
Yeah, all about hugging.
So anyway, that's how we kind of met. Everyone's bored now, so like get to the point. So the point is, we grew up in Croydon, so that's the other thing. First for the podcast, double Croydon on the episode.
Yeah. Croydon is the epicenter of the world, you know, all day, every day, you know.
Exactly. I escaped, you stayed put. Yeah. And, you know, growing up was kind of tough. I had quite disciplinarian parents. You know, who their attitude was that you're working class. You know, don't try and don't try and fly further than your wings can carry you. You know, if you're working class, that's what you are. Accept it. And so I was always a dreamer. And I was also running away from home all the time as well. I used to jump out the window and freaking end up at your house. And, you know, your mum, bless her, she was always so good to me. She always treated me like one of her own. She'd always throw herself in front of me when my dad would turn up to haul me off home again by my ear. And you know, I think it's the love that I maybe didn't get at the time from my parents. We've reconciled since, but that I got from people like you. Your mum was a big part of that as well. Saved me from what could have happened and where I could have ended up. You also didn't have it easy, you and Sonny. Growing up, 80s, Croydon, you know, your dad obviously wasn't there. Your mum was bringing you up on her own, and there was a stigma attached to that at the time as well. I mean, obviously nowadays we know plenty of our people who, unfortunately and for weird reasons, are single parents trying to bring their kids up and all the rest of it. But back then it was a big stigma. What would you say? You know, because you are resilient. You and Sonny are a constant inspiration to me. What would you say if you could just reach back to that time and pull one thing out? What would it be that you would say is kind of the kind of main thing that drove you on to be who you are, the person that you are today?
It's a really interesting question. And to be fair, I only started, so me and Sonny, my brother, so we only started really reflecting on this over possibly the last decade. You know, there was always, as you grow up, you know, your personality changes, you become who you are. But whether we realize it or not, whether we like it or not, there is our subconscious, and our subconscious is designed and built based on, you know, what we go through, right? And only recently did I realize that. So a lot of people over the years have said to me, you know, you're emotionless, like you've got no emotion. My wife will always say to me, you've got no emotions, you know, you've got no, you know, you don't cry at this, or you don't, you know, feel anything like this, or, you know, you've just got no emotions. And, you know, it was only maybe a few years ago that I really started thinking, is that true? Is that, like, I don't really, you know, I wouldn't go as far as to say I'm heartless, but I could fully understand where she was coming from. Like, you know, the things that affect most people don't really affect me.
Yeah.
You know, so I really started looking into it, and I really started trying to understand why am I like this? Why, like, you know, Sonny is very, you know, he's very emotional in that sense. You know, when someone passes away or something happens or something sad happens, it really affects him. It doesn't affect me at all, you know. And I was speaking to a friend of mine who is a psychologist, and she said to me, what you may not remember is when your dad left, you were 8 years old and your brother was 4 years old, and pretty much overnight you became the man of the house, right? So there was no opportunity to be scared or be a young kid anymore, or so her diagnosis, if you may, right, to this was that you'd suppressed all of that so far deep down that when something happens, you couldn't be afraid, you couldn't be scared, you couldn't be angry, you just had to press on because at 8 years old now, you were the man of the house. So, and I think that carried me through all the years, even probably to now. I'm less emotional to many things in life that most people would be. And I do think actually it's probably because at a very young age, it made me, and I don't like saying the word strong, it made me firm, it made me, resilient, obviously certain things. So that was definitely one, that was definitely one thing that, I think in my childhood, that's kind of pushed me forward. And the other thing, is not, and I wouldn't say I'm definitely not the only one. Many are people who come from humble beginnings. Sonny and I, as you very much know, we grew up in a 2-bedroom council house in Norbury, Croydon. And when you're growing up, you see, the popular kids in school, and they got the brand new Nikes, and they're being dropped off in dad's Jaguar, and they're being picked up in something else, and what you do, you stand and you look and you think. And growing up, our human instinct is always, why can't that be me? As you grow on in life, that why can't that be me changes to that's going to be me. And you become, and that's where that hunger and fire comes from, and especially, and it's not just me, it's many people of our generation, especially the migrant generation, right? Our parents who came to this country from other countries, they lived their life and they did things out of necessity. So, and they provided what they had to and what they could. But seeing our parents like that, or in mine and Sunny's case, our mum like that, it just gave us that hunger. There was a very kind of instinct, and that's what carried us through. So even today, both Sunny and I, we are aggressively hungry. How do we become better? And I'm not just talking about materialistic things or financially, or just as humans. How do we just constantly become better? How do we spend time with people who are just going to make us better, make us think better, behave better? So there's constant that chase of being more.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I think because, my parents were knocking me around so much, I was just like, just anything I could do to defy them. So as soon as I'm being told, right, stay in your lane, I was just like, nah, that's not going to be me. That's not the life I want. I think that's why I probably moved to North London, because I needed to make that physical, like that real physical, visceral, like literally wrench myself out of that environment and put myself somewhere else, and then just be like, right, bright lights, big city, I'm going to make it. Yeah. I didn't know what the hell that was going to be, because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I had an interest in fashion and stuff, of course. Thank God that's what I do today. But it didn't matter what anything I fell into, I was determined to be the best at it and just beat everybody else. Yeah. And so that hunger that you talk about has always been there and has been there today. And I get where you're coming from the kind of from the emotion point of view. Now, the first thing I would say is I wouldn't describe you as being completely emotionless, because you do have a tell. I'm not going to say what it is, because a lot of our friends, other people, Founders Club, hopefully are going to be watching, listening to this at some point in the coming weeks and months. So I'm not going to give that secret away. But I will just say this and keep the rest of it between me and you. You're not.
Yeah. I hope I'm not. I also do think that coming with age also brings emotion. I mean, you know, I was never, I've never been a paternal person at all, right? Kids, in the greatest way and with the greatest of respect, never really interested me, you know. So when I got married, I said to my wife, I said, look, you know, if you want kids, fine, I'm cool. If you don't want kids, I'm equally cool. Doesn't bother me, right? Whereas Sonny, he wanted, you know, a small football team from day one, right? But when, you know, now as a father of two daughters, you know, I'm very emotional about them. Like, you know, in the sense of, I see something on Instagram about a father and daughters, and I'm blubbering like, you know, constantly. You know, I'll see something on TV about, you know, daughters, and, you know, and my eyes will start watering up. So in the traditional sense of emotional, yes, you know, and now as I'm getting older, I feel like I'm a lot more connected with my emotions, but also, like I said, you know, really delving and understanding what my friend said to me, and really kind of analysing, why am I like this? And once I realised, actually, that is the reason why I was, quote unquote, you know, not emotional, it's now made me actually really reflect that and actually, you know, look for those emotional parts, you know?
Yeah. Don't worry, I'll help you find plenty of them. That's why I started the hugging thing with you. Take me back to Asian Wealth. It's really funny because it's so funny every time I picked up that magazine.
Yeah.
And I always thought to myself, do you know, the guys who put this together, whoever came up with this and is doing this is fucking smart. I've just lost my clean rating for this episode. Who cares? Do you know what I mean? Because I was thinking, flip it, and they're probably having a really great time as well. Was it like that?
In the early days, yes. You know, we did have great fun, and look, for me, it was great on two levels, right? So number one, it was great in the sense of through and through, I'm a creative person, so it was a fantastic creative outlet for me. You know, it allowed me to get involved with photo shoots. It allowed me to get involved with videos. It allowed me to get involved with the design of, you know, something beautiful. So, you know, that was great for me. And the other thing was, yes, we were positioned in a premium luxury bracket. So the brands that we worked with were equally premium and luxury. So, you know, it threw us. You know, everyone in the team in Asian Wealth threw us into that world. You know, we got to drive supercars and experience beautiful places on the planet, and, you know, experience lovely hotels, and, you know, and look, you know, like everything is, right? That's the glam side of it, you know. So was it like that? Yes, but equally it was very difficult as well. It was really, really difficult, and, you know, in the early days less so, you know, because media was publishing, right? It was only a few years after we launched did that funny thing called Instagram come about, right? And all of a sudden, actually, you know what? It wasn't all of a sudden. It was a few years, right, in the making. So first it was Facebook, and then Instagram came along. And then it was, I'm pretty sure it was like Snapchat or something like that.
Yeah.
I think it was. But before Snapchat, and so Twitter was always there as well. But what had happened is once Instagram came along, all of a sudden, people's dynamics changed. You know, when we had to spare 5 minutes, as opposed to doing this, people were doing this, right? People were scrolling. You know, and I always say to people, think about 10, 15 years ago, jumping on a tube, jumping on a train, you know, jumping on a train in the morning, you would probably have 90% people who had a Metro newspaper in their hand.
Yeah.
You jump on a train these days, and you'll find maybe one person reading a traditional book. That's it. Otherwise, everyone is on their phones, on their laptops, on their tablets. It's become part of the world. So, it got hard as the years grew on, harder and harder and harder and harder. To the point where obviously then in 2018, 2019, we decided to shut the print publication, move everything online. I think it might have actually been in 2018 that we shut the print edition and we moved everything online. But when you take away a certain DNA of something, sometimes the magic is gone. And that's where I really struggled. I really, really struggled because for a long time, all I knew was print publication, print publishing. That's all I knew. And all of a sudden, that had been taken away from me. So I'd lost my roadmap. And I think a lot of people will find this familiar because in life you can never stay, you can never become stagnant. You constantly have to keep moving. And when you do, something changes. And sometimes in life, many times in life maybe, we lose our roadmap. All of a sudden, the playing field changes and you're like, where do I go? What do I do? This is all I know. That's why also sometimes you find people who are in the working world, they're stuck in jobs for 10, 20, 30 years because they convince themselves that this is all I know, this is all I can do, this is, so I lost my roadmap, and then I was saying to Sonny, I said to him, look, we need to really explore how to pivot the business because the media industry, I don't know where, and to be fair, even now, if you ask me in 5 years' time what the media landscape is going to look like, I don't have an answer for you. I have a rough idea, but it still surprises me when I walk past WH Smith's and I still see print publications. Yeah. Who's paying for that? I don't know because intelligent companies are not paying for print advertising. So how are these? How are these publications? To be fair, I know that most publications are loss making. But what it is a conduit to something else. Yeah. It opens the doors to a lot. So now, whereas publishing houses used to have publications as revenue generators, it's now become marketing tools. Yeah. To open doors for different things. But that's, going back to Asian Wealth, that was, it was great. We had a fantastic time, but it didn't come without hard days, hard weeks, hard months, as many of our businesses do. Yeah.
When it's really hard to ask you questions because I know all the answers. Yeah. You know the thing with the podcast, right? The majority of people, guests that I have, I've never met them before.
Right. Okay.
So when we get on the recording,
it's new to you. So it's fresh to you, right?
It's fresh to me. So what happens is, I get a lot of people applying to be on the show now.
Right. Yes.
So we get all these applications, and I have to say no to some people. That it doesn't fit the content we're producing at the moment. I get to say stupid, wanky shit like that now. And so when we get on the recording, we have a 5-minute icebreaker, and then we get into it. But I've not met them, so I don't know what's going to come. I don't know how it's going to go. With you, it's so difficult. I'm trying to craft something here. So it's a new skill set I'm learning, but. Then we get to Foundxrs Club. So actually, let me do it this way round. So you and I reconnect, and you're coming probably about that point to what's gonna be, and you might have not known it at the time, what was going to become the end of Asian Wealth as it was known, which was being that premium publication, something physical, tangible, you put in your hands. You very kindly invited me to some events. I remember, I think one of the ones was the BA one, where we were all crashing planes in a flight simulator at some hotel in Mayfair or wherever it was. St James's, that was it.
Yeah.
And then Asian Wealth kind of starts to wind down. It goes digital. It's not the same thing anymore. Now I know from yours and Sunny's side of it that the magic is gone. So it's like, right, okay, what are we going to do next? I then start to see on Instagram kind of these little stories and whatever pop up on your feed of a load of other Asians having a really fucking great time. And I'm thinking... And then this founders thing, right? Founders, but the last E is an X, not an E. And I'm thinking, what are they up to? What are they up to? What is this? And then gradually it turns into, I feel like I'm on the other side of a screen door and I'm looking through and all these people are at a party that I've not been invited to. And I was like, how can I get on this guest list? And I think in the end, I reached out to you, I DM'd you, and I said, how can I get in on this? Right? And underestimating the value of our connection, it was easy. It was like, okay, I'll hook you up. Foundxrs Club has been one of the big reasons, and I've talked about it on this podcast a lot. It's been one of the reasons for the shift in not just my business, but me as a person over the last 3 years or so.
I'm glad to hear that.
My wife noticed it when I said to her, we had our best year ever, and that was the year we came out of the pandemic. I said to her, I've just beaten it, and with 3 months to go. I said to her, I don't understand what is happening. Where's the shift? And she said, I'll tell you where the shift is. Since you joined Foundxrs Club, since you changed your network and the people you surround yourself with, that's where the needle started to move. Yeah. And that was a really bad segue into needle moving, but that's going to come later. We'll talk about that later. Where did you and Sunny, where did that come from? Where did you suddenly, like in the ruins, this is my hyperactive imagination, by the way, I'm sure it wasn't like that. In the ruins of Asian Wealth magazine with pieces of paper falling around you and things on fire and all the rest of it, did you look at each other and go, how can we leverage what we've actually built and create something else that's going to be even fucking better?
Yeah. It's so the talk of before we closed the Asian Wealth, or before the slow demise of Asian Wealth, should I say? One of the things that Sunny and I kept having conversations about was the power of connection, the power of people, human to human interaction, pre-COVID, as we all know, there's lots and lots of events, right? So we'd go to loads of events, and actually when you're in the company of good people, there was something there. And funnily enough, and I don't think I've actually even told you this, before COVID, one of our very good friends, a very successful business person, and he said, look, would you guys ever consider opening up a club, a physical club? And he said, I'll finance it, I'll fund it, I'll open the club, I'll get the building and so forth. You guys just run it as a membership club. And at that time we said, look, thanks, but no thanks, because that's not our model. That's not what we're a publishing company. But the talk of a club had already started, the talk of, okay, well, and also because, and, just like a lot of good businesses are built from us going somewhere and realizing something is not good and actually how can we make it better, a lot of business ideas come from that. So I've been a member of different clubs over the years. Sunny had been a member of different clubs over the years. There was always something which I felt was missing. I was a member of another club which they had 600-700 members. But unless you walked into a room of 100 people, you're never going to know who those members were. And I was like, I'm never going to be able to speak to 100 people here. So how do I connect with those people outside of here? There was no way. There was other clubs which I was a member of, which was very, very industry specific, so you're in a room with 100 people from a specific industry sector, how do you change that? there was a lot of events you walk in and you get slapped with a name tag, and a cheap glass of wine, and and I thought to myself, it's got to be better than this. Come on, guys, it's gonna be better than this. So there was always one conversation led to another conversation led to another, and actually 2020 January, Sunny and I were in the Maldives, and one of the afternoons we left the family, we went to the bar, and just on the back of an envelope we were talking, okay, well look, let's talk about this club. If there was a club, number one, what problem are we trying to fix? What does this club look like? What is it called? Why would someone join this club as opposed to another club? Who are our members going to be? And so we decided, and the funny thing was, actually, on the way back from the Maldives, there was a lot of people, a lot of Chinese people with face masks on, and we didn't think anything much of it because we thought, actually, that's it in, there's a lot of kind of Asian culture. You walk around with face masks.
Yeah, they've been wearing face masks since avian bird flu, whenever that was 20 years ago.
So we didn't really think of it, and there was a lot of Chinese people, on our flight back to London. Again, we didn't think of it because it was around the time of Chinese New Year. So we thought, okay, maybe they're all coming to London, It was only 2 days after we landed, on the news, they announced something called COVID-19. And there were 6 cases in the UK. That was it. And that's where it began. And all of a sudden, as we all know, the world shifted upside down. But in hindsight, that was probably the best thing, because it really gave us a chance to put our heads down and say, actually, right, Asian Wealth, let's park that. We didn't close it down. Even today, Asian Wealth is not closed.
Yeah, you can still go to the website and sign up for everything.
We parked it, and they said, right, we had a brief conversation in the Maldives about it. Let's put it together now. What does it look like, And so in actually July 2020, we launched. And actually what we did, a lot of people asked me, actually, would you guys have launched this if you didn't have the magazine? And I said, the magazine has got nothing to do with it. I don't know if we would have launched Foundxrs Club if we hadn't created a wonderful black book over the last 10, 12 years of people, right? So we knew that actually what we're trying to create, we're not just trying to create something glamorous and luxury, and that wasn't what we were trying to create. We were trying to create something which helped people.
Yeah.
And not just help business people become better business people. We're trying to create something which allowed humans to become better humans. People who are lonely in business, to surround them with people who would be their pillars and their strength. So we weren't just trying to create something, let's go to lovely places and lovely bars and lovely restaurants. That's not what we were. That wasn't the crux of the club. So we opened the black book and we said, right, can we pick a bunch of people where actually we feel not only will they be able to add value to the club, but we will be able to add value to their business, to them and their lives. So we spoke to about 30 people. Probably about 50 people. 30 people said, yes, I'm in, count me in. And to be fair, majority of those 30 people, were sold off the back of who we were. Not, because right at this stage, we're just selling a dream. We launched in July 2020 when nothing was open. We're in lockdown, right? So right now, I'm selling you a dream. This is what we're about to do. There was some people, and I vividly remember, so one of our members who's still a very loyal member, and he was our member 001, so first member, a dentist called Alok Shukla. Him and his wife, Alok and Lucy, were our first members. So they've now gone into, Lucy's into wellness and Alok's in AI. They were our first members. And still to this day, I remember Alok's words were, listen guys, I don't fully get it. I don't know what it is, but count me in. Wherever you guys are going, I'm in, and that was actually, what a lot of people said, because when you're launching a membership club in the middle of a pandemic where you can't even leave your house, I'm sure some people off camera are probably saying, I don't know what these nutters are on, but you know what, they're good guys. I'm in with them. I'm going along for the ride, you know. So we did that, and we had about 30 members join. And then I think come September, what we did, and so we realised that actually, yes, okay, this is going to work because people are happy to join. At that point, people were joining because of me or for Sunny, or both of us. You know, they were joining us. They all wanted to support us. We realised, okay, well, that can't stay forever. But also, we need to have a good infrastructure. So we paused everything. I think it was in September, and then we relaunched. We got our infrastructure correct, and then done a relaunch in January 2021. And that is when it's probably the real birth of Foundxrs Club, you know. And to this day, you know, as all members clubs, some people will leave, some people, you know, will stay on. You know, we've still probably got out of those initial 30, I think we've probably still got maybe about 20, 25 of those members still with us.
Yep.
The first 50 that we had, I think some of those obviously came in the earlier days are no longer with us, but the initial 30, I think majority of those people are still with us, you know. So there's always love and loyalty for those, you know. And I always have a certain level, not just love, but also respect, you know, respect for those people who supported us, you know, in the early days. So that was actually the birth of Foundxrs Club. Yeah.
But you see, I mean, it's so funny because I was nodding my head frantically there, not because I know the story, but because there were so many things you talked about there in terms of human connection, building relationships. I mean, Asian wealth comes to an end, but again, you've got this goodwill that you've built up over years. You've got a black book of contacts, different industries associated with luxury, you know, Porsche, Rolls Royce, whatever Michelin star restaurants you lot were hanging out in all the time, luxury travel, etc., etc. And you put that to good use at the end of the day. And it was time to start spending all the brownie points that you built up with people. So you know, if I may, to give you a parallel, when I decided to start on my own, it was basically, you know, I worked for a big tailoring company for 7 years. I built my clientele up. Then I went 2 years with some of my friends stroke colleagues because we were like, we're going to go do this better. This was at the start of the financial crisis, 2008, 2009, whenever that was. And because we can be leaner, meaner, we can undercut them and do a better job. And we started off and we did that. But then after a year, I was the typical Indian out of the five, where I was outworking everybody else, outselling everybody else. I was bringing in most of the revenue, but I wasn't getting compensated for what I was bringing to the table. And the other guys were playing golf all the time. And I was like, do you know what? I want to build something. I want to build a business. I do this because I love serving my customers. So either you guys buck up, or with love and respect and all the rest of it, I'm going to go. I'm probably going to take my clients with me because they ain't going to want to stay with you. Most of them followed me from the other firm that I was at for 7 years.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go do my own thing. And they were like, okay, fine. They weren't happy about it, naturally, because me walking out the door, 80% of the business goes.
Sure.
So, and that changes things significantly for them. But I had to go do what I had to do. I could not stand it anymore, KP. I had to get out of there. And also, it was almost like I was the same age at that point when my dad was when he started his business. And I think there's always been this thing deep down inside of me that I got to do better than he did.
Right. Okay.
Which started from a place of wanting to teach him a lesson if ever we reconciled and he saw what I was doing.
Yeah.
Now it's not about that. It's probably easy to say though because you know I've done it. And so when I went to my customers and I said, "Listen, I know I left the company I was at before and you stayed with me and I'm really grateful for that. But I'm about to leave here and start my own thing because I can't stand it anymore. And I totally understand. You're happy with what we're doing. I can pass you on to one of the other guys. So many of my customers went, so I was going to order 1 suit from you today, or I was going to order 2 suits from you today, but are you telling me you're going on your own? Double the order. You've got my credit card details. Put it through whenever you're set up.
Yeah.
So I went home to Carolina. I think it was the weekend we were having a barbecue or something, and she wondered where I was. Everyone's out in the garden having a good time. I'm on the sofa on my iPad at the time, and she goes, "What the fuck are you doing? I'm here serving everybody." She said, "I'm literally so they don't notice you've gone. I've doubled everyone's shots in the margaritas and stuff." "What are you doing?" And I held up the iPad proudly, and I said, and I showed her the certificate of incorporation or wherever it is you get from the company's house website. I said, "I just set a company up." Yeah. And then I had my best friend at the time, James, because he was a bit good with WordPress and all that. And I said, "Here's the website and the logo." I just started a business. Because I knew I was going into it with the goodwill of all my customers. I had an order book, like 50, 60, 70 grand. Yeah. So I knew I was going to put 10 in. Within a week, I'd pay myself back. Business is off and running from day one.
I love that.
That's why we see from a standing start to quick success in our bio. But the point is, right? You got those little principles that are exactly the same. You build up goodwill in business. You build your relationships, human connection. People will get on that train with you.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's so even now, Bobby, when we talk about the club internally, I always push to make the team feel like the club should be like a hotel. It should be like a 5-star hotel, because any luxury hotel, any 5-star hotel, any boutique, premium boutique hotel, it's not the stuff that you have in there, it's the way you feel when you walk through the doors. If you go to most of the 5-star hotels, they pump a certain fragrance into the lobbies, right? And you'll smell that. It's because it's evoking emotion. It's making you feel a certain way. From day one, the concept was, how do we create that in a club like ours? How do we make you feel not just part of a community? How do we make you feel like the coin that you or the term that you coined, right? My tribe, right? And how do you create that? There's a certain magic. There really is, And with that magic comes, loyalty, comes commitment, comes relationship, And there's a lot of business that happens within the club, as you know, right? There's a lot of business that happens in the club. Why? Because we're a good club? No. It's because we've got good people, and actually people connect with good people. People build relationships with good people, and eventually, at some point, if it's right, people will do business with good people. You're more inclined and more, you're more bound to do business with people that you enjoy the company of or trust, importantly, than those you don't really. So I think it doesn't surprise me in the slightest, knowing you and what you do and how good you are. For those people who joined you once you left your firm, and knowing 2 things: look, this guy is a good guy. Actually, I trust him. And secondly, what he does, he's very talented, and actually his product is great. So it becomes a very, very easy decision. So no, I completely get that and respect that as well, because it's not an easy thing, especially when you're working in a team like that. It takes a lot to then push you out to say, actually, I can't do this. I've got to do something else.
Yeah,
I commend you for it.
I think you've done a really good job as well of cultivating that sort of core set of almost original or mostly original members, or people who weren't original members but get it. Because as the club grows, that's the next challenge, I'm guessing, for you, which is how you keep that. Because there was something you said to me very early on: no egos. That was the phrase.
Okay.
That was the phrase that we associate with you: no egos, and that's still true to this day. But it requires hard work from a lot of the core members to make sure that when we're seeing people that are new to the club that are coming in, that we're relating what makes us special.
Yeah.
And I'm saying us, right? I'm a member,
Yeah.
but that in itself shows how special it is and what you've created is, and saying to people, this is not a BNI. This is not some, one of these other freaking business networking clubs where you're just promoting yourself all the time and ramming what you do down people's throat. I don't actually like talking about what I do with people. I get embarrassed. Like, what do you do?
You just show them what you do when you walk into a room, and I think people
just point at you. I do that. Do you think he looks 10 out of 10? Great, that was me. Explaining to them the attitude that you need to come with, and it's not just Foundxrs Club. So everyone who's still with us listening, congratulations. But herein lies the lesson, right? It's about building, creating, cultivating relationships with people, get to know people. And so, we're all on this journey. We're at different stages of it. Some of our members have sold businesses time and again. They've exited, built. Other people are just starting out. Other people are somewhere in the middle. Some people are finding their way. They're not sure exactly what the end game is. Some people are very clear on what their end game is and where they want to go. It's one of the reasons why they're part of this network. But whatever that is, get to know people, cultivate your relationships. At some point, you'll be part of someone else's black book of contacts when they need or someone else needs what you do. That's the attitude to go in with. Put the money last. Put the human connection first.
Yeah.
There's always been
and you're absolutely right. And Bobby, one of the reasons why I guess we started thinking like this, right, is because during the Age of Wealth days, I was very blessed and I had the privilege of sitting down with people who obviously are cover stars, who are very, very successful entrepreneurs, who own cornerstones to countries, right? So, and I sat down with them, and the thing that we never ever talked about was money, ever. It was things that they'd learned, So by default, there were so many things that over the last 10, 12 odd years that I've learned from these people. And the one key thing that kept coming up again and again and again was things like reputation, respect, human connection, all these things. So it was never the materialistic stuff and actually that is the core to what the club is it's human to human connection, right? But you are right, going back to what you mentioned about, as the club grows, how do we keep that? You are right, it gets harder and harder. When we had 50 members, it was easy, now at 350 members, it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder because we still want to, my job, and I say to you, and I said many times to other members as well, my one core job in the club is to remember people's names. I always have this thing about, actually, I want to know every single member's name. I don't need to know their P&L, but I need to know what their name is, what their company is, and what industry they're in. That's it. And for me, that's a sign of respect, because one of our rules in the club was, we don't want you to just be a number. We don't just want you to be a face in the crowd, because there are clubs out there, if that's where you want to be, there are clubs out there who have 10,000, 20,000 members. We don't want that to be us. The plan was never to be that, because when you are at that, then you're just a number. Your voice is not heard. When you're member 9,852, guess what? You're just a number, right? So, and part of that was remembering your name, and how do we make a member who joined us 3 years ago how do we make them, number one, as valued today as they were 3 years ago? Number two, how do we make sure that there's still value to that member, right? So what is that member looking for? What was the reason why, Bobby Rivera joined the club, and is that still the same today? If Bobby stays on as a member for 3 years, great. How do we make him stay on for 6 years, 7 years? What do we need to do? So constantly we are having discussions internally to how do we perfect this? How do we get better? How do we, how do we move the needle? How do we move the needle in terms of doing these things? It's hugely, hugely important.
Yeah. So, nice segue. Better than the way I tried to do it about 10 minutes ago. So moving the needle movers, something that is come up in conversation with you, me, Sonny, Mitt. We were at dinner recently and it came up there. And it's something that I'm so highly conscious now. And I think for me, it came from something that I heard Sonny say once. Because, you and Sonny, so again, for people who are listening that haven't been paying attention, Sonny is KP's younger brother. And KP's
acts like my older brother.
Yeah, acts like his older brother, is the more largely responsible one as well. But Sonny is, I guess, how do you say it? He's kind of more the straight guy in the duo. And you're the dreamer. You're the one that if someone doesn't put a freaking reins on you, you will literally be, like you'll have 2,000 ideas and you'll be wanting to try this and that. And Sonny's like the guy who's like, whoa, slow down a second. And something he said was, it was something like, and you'll be able to paraphrase him better than me because, obvious reasons. But he said, this thing that we're looking at, is it going to make money? No, not doing it. So simple, right? But it's like, get rid of all the fluff. Sonny's just like, is this going to make money? No, not fucking doing it.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
It is. You'll be surprised. You're absolutely right. Sonny is the strategic. He's the analytical one. So in the business, he's the non-emotional one. In the business, I'm the emotional.
And that's what I was going to say earlier. That in fact, in your personal lives, he's the like freaking Mr. Emo, all the rest of it. I love him so much, and one of my regrets in life is again us getting separated, but also just not having had the benefit of his friendship and his company for so many years. And you're the straight guy, no emotions, but as soon as you go business, it's completely role reversal.
Yeah, it completely. I become him and he becomes me. But even look behind closed doors, he's still that guy, right? Even in business, and we still have the same conversations, right? He will always say, okay, well, look, the way that we work is cannot be a few £1 million business. How do we make it into a 10, 20, 30, 40 million pound business? What do we need to do in order for that to happen? So there's always that conversation internally, how do you constantly grow? Because ultimately, look, we're also a business, right? So the business has got to grow. How do we do that? Yeah. And everyone brings their own. Look, everyone brings their own source to the table. I have my thoughts. Ruchi has hers, and Sonny has his. So, but you're right. It's one of those things where you need to have all three people. Creating that, and again, going back to moving that needle. Or needle movers, shall we say? And people have previously asked, "What the hell is that? What does that mean?" Right?
Yeah. The thing is, because we're using an analog analogy from when we were kids, and we used to look at, like hi-fi systems, right? Where you'd have, that you'd have the cassette deck, and then you'd have the amplifier, and then you'd have the one that had like the tuner, and then you would have the one that was like the needle would move depending on what the sound was doing, right? I didn't understand how it worked. But sometimes when there was like a big bass drop or something, the needle would shift move. Exactly.
Yeah, it would move. And it's funny, right? Because the way that it was explained to me and Sunny, funnily enough, years ago, was that generally, as a business, if it's not steered correctly, then we all become operational, right? And by operational, it means we spend our days just responding to emails, or we'll, just
doing like busy work that actually isn't really getting you anywhere.
Absolutely. You're doing essential work. It needs to be done, right? So it is, but you're not moving forward. That's what it is. So this was, the term that when it was given to us was that actually, what are you doing every day, every week that actually, moves the business forward, actually moving forward, the needle being pushed, right? So moving the needle, right? What is it? And that is when you realize that actually you could spend 30 days, spend, a whole month responding to emails and doing basic stuff, right? And then only when you get to the end of the month, you realize, actually, what have we done what are our big goals? What are the big things we need to do? And actually, what do we do to actually even try and attack those things? And this is where, and I can't remember the exact analogy, but they say it's 20% of what we do makes 80% of the difference, right?
Yeah. It's Pareto's principle, 80-20.
Yeah, so it's, and that's what needle moving is.
Yeah. And you take it a stage further, because when you look at, there's a book I read, it might have actually been the same one, the 80-20 principle or the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
He goes further, so he talks about 80-20. Then he says to you, right, once you've worked out what the 20% is that produces the 80%, what's the 80% of that 20%?
Yeah.
And once you've mastered that, what's the 80% of that 20%?
Yeah.
And you just kind of keep going until you get to a stage where you're just creating thunderclaps all day long.
Yeah.
The other one, which was the domino effect, which was in the early 80s, there was a dude called Lorne Whitehead, and he wrote in the Journal of Physics, he'd worked out basically that a single domino is capable of bringing down a domino next to it that's 50% bigger. And so he then calculated that if you started with a domino that's like about 6 centimeters or 2 inches, and you increase it 50% with each one, domino number 23 would end up being the size of the Eiffel Tower.
Wow.
The 31st domino, so only 9 this is my Croydon coming out. Only 9 dominoes more, 8 dominoes more, number 31, sorry, definitely my Croydon coming out, then is bigger than Mount Everest. So it's like 3,000 feet tall. Number 56, 57, somewhere around there, would bridge the distance between the Earth and the Moon.
Wow.
So
by one domino.
One domino, 57, you hit that one domino, they all go, bang, 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 bang. Number 57 knocks the Moon out of orbit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Theoretically.
Yeah. It's amazing, when you think about, what we can do as humans if we focus and dedicate and and look, it's not easy. It's very easy for me and you to sit here and say, thunderclaps and moving needles, and it's very easy to say. The hard part is doing, is implementing, that's the hard part. So there's a lot of psychological stuff that goes into it. Even me, like, look, on a daily basis, I have 2 lists. I have big tasks, small tasks, right? And my big task is always needle moving stuff.
Yeah.
And I have actually, to be fair, the last couple of months, the thing that I've set myself a challenge is I've got to try and do at least one big needle moving task a day. I've got loads of them, right? But I need to do one a day.
Yeah.
It's important.
Anyone who's listening that's at the start of a journey or is sitting in a big fancy house like I am right now, that I built, through a lot of blood, sweat and tears and a lot of hassle and legal bills and stuff. But anyway, we're here, and it is, KP, you been to the girls, you've got to come up at some point. We'll have you round once we've finished all this external nonsense that's going on. But it is freaking awesome. Like it is like,
you know what? Just the look on your face, you know, is the pride, you know, and that actually means everything. That's joy. That, you know, just by you saying it, just a smile on your face. I mean, it portrays, you know, pride, you know, and I love that.
Yeah. But I come down in the morning and I look out, we've got this big oak tree at the bottom of the garden where our house backs out onto open fields. We're like gateway to Hertfordshire, all that bullshit. And the sun rises behind this oak tree and we've got these floor-to-ceiling picture windows. It's stunning. Like the design, Carolina did such an amazing job. And with my approval, obviously. And but I look and I make my coffee at my bean-to-cup coffee machine, all that sort of thing. And then I think back to where I came from, where we came from. And I think to myself, you know, when people say to me, you're so lucky, I'm like, it ain't luck. Yeah, sure, I maybe had some bits of luck along the way.
Sure, yeah.
But I worked to the bone and created my luck. And I think that's what it is for a lot of people that come from our kind of background and get to some level of success. Success is, you know, is defined differently for a lot of different people. But yeah, you know, for me, this is my 57. No, this is not. This is my 26th domino, because I'm not at my 57 yet. But as we get older and we get more mature in business and we start learning from where we've come from, and we start identifying those moments. Where was the moment? So for, you know, like recent example, say to Carolina, what was it? What was the change that suddenly led to us having massive growth in a short space of time and having back-to-back 2 best years? And I can see and feel the change in the way that we're working, the way the business is moving, etc. What was it? And she'll be like, that domino was the day you joined Foundxrs Club, or the day that you DM'd KP and said, how can I get in on this? Yeah, and you change the people around you. The next one is whatever the next one is going to be. You know, maybe the second domino was when I left home and I moved to North London and I just got away from everything down there. But it's looking back and being able to just look and identify where now I'm going to just stick on the domino analogy. Where were those dominoes? Where did you place them in such a way that when you knocked them over, got you to where you are today? And where do you need to now place the next ones? Yeah.
It's a fantastic way to look at it, you know, Bobby. And the other part of it is, I guess sometimes you don't know where to put the dominoes, but you know that you have to push that domino, right? It's, you know, sometimes you may not know, actually, I need to move home, but I don't know when it's going to happen. But actually, that is the goal. I need to do it. I need, you know, and I need to do this or do that and put this in place and put that in place in order for me to do it, you know. So that's, I think, you know, it's core, you know. And you should be very proud. You should be very proud.
No, thank you. But so should you, because look at everything that you've done. Foundxrs Club, because it's not only about the business that you and Sonny decided to pivot to, build, etc. And you're on the way to making it such a huge success, and I'm sure you guys are going to hit all of the goals that you've set for yourselves with it. But it's also the opportunity, the impact, and just the lives that you've changed that you might not even be fully aware of through what you both created. And the other wonderful thing is you didn't actually create it in the first place with a view to, let's just go out and make a ton of money off of the, you know, leverage the network that we've got and just make a shitload of money off it. It was, how can we help people? How can we create community and help people? Yeah. And that's what you're doing.
You know, look, you're right. And I think it's, it's really important to understand, you know, where your strengths are and what you're able to do. There's many things that actually I hate doing and I'm rubbish at doing, you know. I'm just blessed to have a very good team who is able to do that. But equally, it's not just me and Sunny, as you know, right? It's Ruchi. Ruchi is literally our anchor. She is the one who brings it now all together, right? She is, and she brings something to the table, which again is very different to what I bring. Very different to what Sunny brings, and knowing where here is something really important, right? Is knowing where your limit is, right? And this may sound unconventional to the conversation that we have about shooting for the stars and so forth, but it's really, really important. And those limits, I'm not talking about what you're able to do. It's the limit that you put on yourself to say, actually, you know what? I'm able to get it to here, and that's okay. I'm happy with that, right? I'm not going to be able to get it to here, right? So before I had, Asian Wealth, we had a oil and gas magazine, right? As you know, I sold it. I sold it to, actually, he's still one of my very good friends, Greg. And I sold it because, Asian Wealth was sexy and glamorous, and oil and gas wasn't as sexy and glamorous, right? And I had lost interest, I had lost love for it, right? So I knew, actually, I could only get it to a certain point. When I sold it to Greg, Greg's probably quadrupled what it was at, because he's still got the love for that, right? I had, one of mine and Sunny's mentors, he exited his business at $250 million, 250 million, right? And he openly said, that's where I was going to take it to. He retained a small share in the business. The business is now worth over $1 billion. He still retained a share in the business, right? But he knows, he said, I was never going to be able to get into $1 billion company. Never. So knowing, and this also is, when you know your limits, you make decisions about exit plans, and, and understanding where you need to position yourself. So all these things, it's so important about kind of having those, having those things in place, basically.
Yeah. Wow. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna end it there on that note, because I can't think of a better way to do it. But also the fact is, if we keep going on, we ain't gonna get off this call till sometime tonight, and I'm sure you've got better things to do. So thank you so much for giving me just so much of yourself, as well as your time as well. You look amazing, by the way, I have to say.
I look amazing. It's because I've got Bobby Rivera jacket on, and it's that's the reason why I look amazing. It's all thanks to you. It's all thanks to you. You may not be able to see it because it's black on black, but it's and I'm not just saying this. Because you're a very good friend of mine. You're a brother of mine, and you're a member of the club. I'm saying it because, actually, and even before we met, I've got a number of bespoke jackets, and look, working with you, I tell you what it's done. It's made me find me in that sense of clothes. It's made me find me, because I've had jackets made from lots of different places, and there's always there's always a balance between what I like and what is advised to me, right? I've got a couple of check jackets, right? Which were actually, now looking back on it, I was actually pushed onto me. I've never liked check jackets. I've never, but I didn't know it until it was designed and created for me, and I'm wearing. Actually, I still wear them. Don't get me wrong, I wear them, but it was only like the tailor who made it for me. And then, actually, I'll tell you what happened is, when I then go onto his Instagram, I realised that he's wearing a check jacket in every one of different check jackets, but every one of his posts, right? Lots of his clients are wearing check jackets, and I'm like, obviously that's his style, and that's he's portrayed that obviously onto me, and and I've got obviously a check jacket. One of the things I've always loved is double-breasted. But so many places that I went to saying that, oh no, double breast. That's an old school thing. That's that's what is really you don't want to go old school. When I said to you, Bobby, double breasted, you said, let's do it. So there was, so that's why I say that actually you allowed me through the jackets, you allowed me to become me. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. In terms of the material, in terms of like, the amount of times where I've spoken to other tailors and say, actually, and I don't want to say, look, I'm bashing other tailors, right? I'm giving you my experience.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, don't worry about doing that because God knows
I'm giving my experience because it was only now, probably about 7 or 8 different tailors, right? I've had. So I can speak comfortably and say, actually, this is the experience. If I only had you and maybe one other, then I've only got 2 people to compare it, right? But I've had 6 or 7 tailors, right? So I can say comfortably that actually the experience was, the material is sometimes pushed onto you. The design is sometimes pushed onto you. Of course, it's a bespoke tailor's job to advise you. But it's equally, now I know, it's a tailor's job to read between the lines, to say, listen, actually, this is what this guy says, this is what he wants, this is what he loves. Now, what's in between the lines? You see, what can I, and that's where it is. And actually, that's why when, the first one, the green one that you made for me was like, one of my favorites, still is. But after that, I was like, right, I need another form,
Along with an uh-oh.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So that's the reason why I look so good, because I'm wearing a Bobby Revilla jacket.
So there's a film called The Outfit with Mark Rylance. He's one of my favourite actors. He's such a chameleon. I don't know if you've seen it. If you haven't, check it out. Okay. But he basically plays a tailor, bespoke tailor in America, and his tailoring shop is basically used as a money laundering thing for the mafia.
Right. Okay.
But the film starts with an amazing monologue. So it's him getting to his shop early in the morning and going about his routine, and the voiceover. He basically, he says. You cannot make something good until you know who you're making it for.
Yeah. Amen to that.
You need to understand the individual in front of you. This is now not him, but the way he says it is much better than me. But that's what I try to do. It's I've worked for other people, right, that sell customers into things that are not them. And for me, growing up, clothes were very important because I made that connection between. I mean, you went to school with me. Sometimes I turn up in freaking flares and get the shit kicked out of me because mum and dad, I've always been tall. Again, as you know, I was always the tallest kid in class. And, mum and dad couldn't afford to keep buying me new school uniform all the time, or if we've got holes in the legs because tripped over playing kiss chase or whatever. Or football, rather. Sorry, where did the kiss chase come from? We were doing that too. And so she used to give me dad stuff. Like, you wear that to school. I used to get beaten up. Even the teachers used to cuss me. I remember once at Norbury Manor, the head teacher made me walk out of assembly and go put my shorts and t-shirt on. And go I had to go through school in those little shorts and my vest the whole freaking day. Like, how embarrassing is that?
Yeah, I know. It's you won't be able to get away with that these days now.
You wouldn't. And so that was where, when I started cutting up my flares and, badly sewing them back together to try and taper them, and then people wouldn't beat me up as much. And I started to make the connection between how it made me feel and also the impact it had on other people and how they saw me.
Yeah, of course.
So less compelled to beat the shit out of me. Fast forward to today, and that's how I try to work with people, is that, when I sit down with my customers and I'm like, we're not looking at cloth right now. I want to talk about you.
You got to know the people.
Exactly.
People, yeah.
And once you get the measure of the man or woman, then you can start to make recommendations and so on. But with you said double-breasted with such conviction. And in that moment, I visualise you in double-breasted. I'm thinking, do you know what? He's a powerfully built guy already. You can't hide that, so we're going to lean into it. Yeah? This is the OG. So let's make him look like that when he walks into a room.
I don't think. Right. Okay.
We'll wrap this up in a minute.
Okay. All right. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Gary. Yeah. Do you want to come in? It's fine. Yeah. No worries. It's.
Don't be scared, Gary. What does Gary do?
So Gary is a gas engineer. Is that leak detection engineer?
I prefer that. Yeah, you're a home safety, stopping your whole family from dying consultant.
There you go. You go. I say, look, you've had your house just built, right? And we all have to. The reality is, there's always something that goes wrong, and I'm having boiler issues and things like that at the moment,
Yeah.
So Gary's here to save the day, basically, So, but yeah, So that. Sorry for the interruption, but
no, that's okay. So basically, you came to me double-breasted. Two things. Number one, I was like, he's a big, powerful, built guy. We got to lean into it because we can't hide it. I'm a magician, not a sorcerer. And you're comfortable with it anyway. It's what we all know and love you for. And then second thing, he's wanted, because I've known you for a long time, right? When you want something, you really, this is something he's wanted, and he's asked other people and they've said no.
Yeah.
And the reason they've said no, because they don't want to take that challenge on.
Yeah.
Double breast is difficult. Yeah. It's lining up the buttons, all of that shit. If you don't know what you're doing, if you can't measure for shit, yeah, fine. Put the poor guy in a 2-button single-breasted jacket. You're absolutely right not to put him in double-breasted because you're going to do a really, really bad job. But me, it's like this is what we do.
But that's what separates. That's what separates the good from the great. All right. And that again, I said good from great, not from, bad to good, but good from great, because the other guys are good, but that's what the difference is between good and great. It's actually making those decisions when they're hard, and again, making people feel a certain way, and that is the magic, whether it is a membership club, whether it is tailors, is making people feel good, that is the magic of it.
Yeah. And that's it. If you can try and do that, whatever business you're in, you'll go a long way. KP, thank you so much. I'm going to let you go deal with Gary and gas leaks and God knows what else you got going on over there. Have you had fun today?
I absolutely loved it. I mean, firstly, thank you very, very much for having me on your podcast. Number two, we could have probably spoken for another couple of hours, just about life and love, to be fair. So I absolutely enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you all so much for joining KP and I. You can check out Foundxrs Club on Instagram. Just I'll put the links in the show notes. And also you can follow us on Instagram, Tailoring Talk Podcast, for latest episode updates, highlights and news. The podcast is on YouTube at Roberto Revilla London. And you can email me at tailoringtalkpodcast@gmail.com. I always love hearing from you and love your feedback. Hit subscribe, give the show a rating and review, and click the share button in your player to send this episode to someone you know who needs to hear what KP taught and shared with us today. And if you love Tailoring Talk and you want to support the show, hit the support the show link in the show notes. Have a great week, be good to each other, and I'll catch you on the next one.